everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to continue the discussion today, talking about the opioid epidemic. It continues to plague the country, and Rhode Island Department of Health says that Rhode Island's overdose crisis began with prescription drugs. Overdose deaths caused by a combination of illicit drugs and prescription medication are up nearly a third since 2011. Rhode Island has one of the biggest drug problems in the United States. We just reported that here on Go Local Prov. The fifth biggest drug problem in the country here in Rhode Island. So we're going to continue the conversation covering this story. I would like to introduce Perri Peltz. She's a filmmaker, a journalist, and a filmmaker with HBO documentary crew. Perri, thank you so much for joining us in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate your having us on. We're really couldn't be happier to talk about the film and have this opportunity to speak with your audience.
So thank you so much for joining us. You recently released an amazing film, Warning, This Drug May Kill You. It was very emotional and tough to watch at times. Tell us a little bit about the film that you just made, Warning, This Drug May Kill You.
Molly, you're right. I mean, the name of the film, I think, says a lot about it. It is a warning shot, because what we found when we started this film about a year and a half ago is that the narrative that was surrounding the issue of opioid addiction is that somehow what this was all about, what people were dying and overdosing, had to do more with bad kids that were abusing good medications that they were taking from their parents' medicine chest or their grandparents' medicine chest. And what we learned is that's just not the case. This is about this epidemic that is sweeping through the country. 91 people will be dead by the end of the day, and that, the CDC believes, may in fact be an underestimate. But it's good people. It's good people who, for the vast majority of times, have been introduced to an opioid medication from a legitimate prescription from a very well-intentioned doctor. So we wanted to communicate to people what was happening in the country and what it looks like to be addicted to an opioid medication. You know, Molly, this time the drug dealers, there aren't really drug dealers. That kind of comes in at the end, and sometimes when people can't get access to prescriptions anymore or to prescription pain medications, they switch over to another opioid. Yeah. It's an illegal opioid, and that, of course, is heroin. But chemically, they're very similar, and they produce almost identical effects.
And you know what, Perri, you've been working not only in the journalism sector, but the public health sector for quite some time. So really interesting to get your take on all of this. Let's talk a little bit about the opening sequence of the docu. It was stomach-wrenching to watch. It was heartbreaking. You used cell phone clips of people who had consumed opioids. They were having a hard time. Some of them had overdosed. Really, really difficult to watch, but really eye-opening. As a filmmaker, how did you decide to use those clips, and what were you going for when you used those clips?
You know, it's a great question. What we felt we needed to do was wake up people in this country to what's going on. And I agree with you. It is really hard to see. It's hard to watch people overdosing, but it's happening all around us. And I think until we start to accept what this looks like, what it means to overdose, that we're not going to begin to have a really good conversation that's going to start to heal the problems that this country are facing right now when it comes to opioid addiction. And remember, this is not an epidemic of abuse. This is an epidemic of a brain disease called addiction. So really what we were trying to do is say, everybody, hey, this is what it looks like. It's not pretty. It's really awful. But it's happening 91 times a day, and that 91 times a day that people are dying. So that's really why we chose to do that. And we understand it is tough to watch. There's no question. But imagine how tough it is to be one of those people or one of the family members of one of those people. Nothing could be worse than that.
And it's so eye-opening because it's right off the bat. And then followed up with that, within the first few minutes, you showcased the video from Purdue Pharma. Talk to me about the message that you were going for when you followed up with those videos.
Right. Okay, so that's a great question. How did we get
Yeah, how did you even get it? I guess.
guess.
Yeah.
Right? Which is really incredible because if you go back, these drugs, and you know what they are: OxyContin, Vicodin, Percocet, oxycodone, hydromorphone, fentanyl. There are a lot of them. These drugs, many of them, have been around for a long time, but until the late 90s, they were used very sparingly for severe pain, for end-of-life pain, for pain associated with cancer. What happened in the late 90s were a lot of things, and I don't want to suggest that this is all the fault of the pharmaceutical industry. That would be wrong, but they certainly played a role. And one company in particular that made the drug OxyContin went on a very aggressive marketing campaign. And what they did, and the video that you're referring to that we show in the beginning of the film, is they say, hey, guess what? We were wrong, and these drugs are not nearly as addictive as we once thought. Guess what? That wasn't the case. And that company pleaded guilty in a criminal case. But unfortunately, Molly, I think that the genie was out of the bottle, and it's very hard to go back and take back what had happened. So again, not pointing the finger entirely at them, there were a lot of things that going on. Why did doctors buy into it? Why did the FDA allow it? What was happening? It was a perfect storm. And I would like to believe in my heart that at some point it was about helping people deal with their pain, because no one wants to be in pain. But these are really, really addictive drugs, and unfortunately, this company was aware of it, and it has to change.
It does. It really does, and it's so hard to see communities suffering, families suffering, communities suffering. Let's talk a little bit. You went to Brown University, so part of our community as well. Yeah. And you've shown the film here in Providence and many other places. So it's really not just about making a documentary. It's really a talking piece. So what do you hope to see now that many people have seen the film and have been able to discuss it? What do you hope to see come from it?
You know what? It's a great question. And actually, the producer on the film, Sasha Weiss, and I struggled with that a little bit, right? Because there's so many things one could want out of a film. There's so much. What I think we wanted, we had our first screening in Providence, I will say, and I also want to add something else while we're talking about Providence. The governor of Rhode Island, Governor Gina Raimondo, has done an exceptional job. As you mentioned before, Rhode Island has been, like much of New England, extraordinarily hard hit. So I do want to say that Rhode Island and other states in New England, it has been a disaster. It's really, really been bad. And Governor Raimondo deserves a tremendous amount of credit, and her team, for really going aggressively after this epidemic. So hats off to her and her incredible team. And I also would like to say that she and others, we have some information, as you noticed in the film, we don't have any experts in the film. We wanted to let the families be the experts, but we do online at hbo.com/opioids have a lot of supporting materials, including a piece from the governor of Rhode Island about what states can do to respond. And that gets back to your question, which is, what do we hope from the film? I hope a lot. But realistically, what I really hope is that we start a conversation and that we start to talk about this in a way where we no longer say, oh, it's just some bad kids. We need to realize it's us. It's our parents. It's our siblings. It's our children. It's our friends. And it's all around us. It's our problem. It's not their problem. And I believe from the bottom of my heart that until we accept that, we are not going to get this epidemic under control. So I hope that it starts a conversation, and I hope that we start to look at this for what it is, which is an addiction epidemic, and that will be a significant step forward. I would be really happy if that happened in even one home.
And I think it is. I think people are talking about it. People are discussing it, whether it be in person or just in online communities. And I think HBO does a really good job not only providing it online and on HBO Go, but you're able to see the documentaries on YouTube. I was just sharing it today saying, if you don't have an HBO subscription, you can watch this documentary online on your computer, which I think is so valuable for people to be able to see. And people are having conversations about this just online. I was opening going through and seeing people talking about it. So just getting the message out there, which I think is so valuable. So hats off to you. And you mentioned our Governor Gina Raimondo. She did one of those web extras, and I kind of wanted to chat with you about that. Do you think that it is up to, do you think it's up to governments to intervene when it comes to addiction epidemics? Do you think it is up to the government agencies to get involved? Our governor, like you spoke with her, has taken action. Do you think it's time for government to step in to do something here? You've been very active in public health.
It's a really good question. And just for a second, getting back to HBO putting this up on YouTube, I have to take my hat off to HBO because they did break the paywall, and they put it on HBO's YouTube channel in its entirety. Sometimes they show bits and pieces, right? Which is great because they want everybody to have access to it, not just HBO subscribers. So that was really meaningful to us. As far as your question about what can we do and what can states do, it's both complicated and it's really straightforward. The immediate answer is we have to this is an epidemic that starts with people being exposed to these drugs. We must get prescribing laws under control. Whether that's something that the federal government takes on, the state government takes on, I don't know, and I'm not enough of a policy expert to really weigh in on that, but I know that that's one piece. And the second piece where I do think government can get involved, and I worry about it right now, is we have millions of people in this country right now who are addicted and who are struggling with addiction. This is not, unfortunately, an easy addiction from which to recover. It just isn't. And there's a lot of science about why that is. We have to make sure that people have access to good and effective treatment. And unfortunately, oftentimes going to a rehab facility is something that is out of the economic reach of way too many people. And very often, rehabs aren't quite the right fit here because what we know also, and what the government says and what the data suggests, is medication-assisted treatment, the use of medications like buprenorphine, also known as Suboxone, or methadone, or Vivitrol, or any of these other kind of opioid blockers, are the best way to treat this. And we need to make sure that people have access to this kind of treatment. So what concerns me as we look right now and see what's going on with the dismantling of the Affordable Care Act, or the possible dismantling of the Affordable Care Act, like I said, I'm not a policy person. I don't want to get into that conversation because I don't think I know enough. But what I do know is we have to have a way where people have access to the care that they need and the treatment that they need. And so I would say to all government officials, whatever you do with our health care, make sure that the millions of people who have become addicted many times because they did exactly what they were supposed to do, which is take medications that were given to them from their doctor, have access to that kind of treatment.
Well, thank you for that. And I ask because you have been covering public health for so long as a journalist, getting your start. I believe I heard you in a talk. One of your first jobs, or one of your many jobs, was in Springfield, Massachusetts, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
my first television job was as a medical reporter in Springfield, Massachusetts. Exactly right. WGGB TV Channel 40. So
oh, that's great.
Not too far. So that's absolutely right.
That's great. So you have quite a bit of insight. And I know you do have to go. You have a very busy schedule, so I appreciate you talking with us. And I encourage so many people to go out there, watch the documentary, and it is available on multiple platforms. So I do appreciate your time with us. Perri, I know you're very busy with this project. Do you have any, you've done multiple documentaries. Do you have anything in the pipeline?
You know what? That's a good question. We're looking at a couple of things. Nothing yet that's definitive. But I hope that I continue to have the privilege for making documentaries for HBO. There is no, in my opinion, it is such a wonderful place to be under the leadership of Sheila Nevins and the rest of the team there. It's really been an incredible experience. So I hope that we get to continue and do more. And I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk. Every opportunity that we have to get the word out there is very much appreciated.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad we were able to make the conversation happen. I really appreciate it.
Me too.
And next time you're in Providence, we hope to see you. I know we've been trying to make this conversation happen for a long time. So
absolutely, and I'm in Providence a lot, so promise that we'll get together in person.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. So Perri Peltz, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and I encourage everyone to watch Warning, This Drug May Kill You, and there are tons of web extras as well, so check them out. I really appreciate your time, Perri. I'll let you go. Thank you so much for joining us today. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.